Suzanne, this book that you and I wrote with our co-authors, now that it's out, now people are reading it, I'm having some doubts. I still feel very comfortable with what we've written, but there's one thing that's implied by the book that I don't feel so great about. Um, it's the idea that if you've got a poor culture, a lousy culture, that there are things that you could do to fix it. And maybe there aren't. There are certainly situations that you and I both know about that are just too horrible to be fixed.
It's true, but it's also true that I believe that we can't change a large culture, a large problem. What we can do is to improve parts of it. We wrote about this a little bit, about isolating parts of the culture, the parts where we think we can make a difference. And it reminded me of a project that James and I did in the UK for a very big company. We inherited a project team, and the day we walked in there, it was just miserable. I mean, nobody looked happy. Everybody just it was down. It felt down. It seemed as if they were just there waiting to go home. And we really had to do something about this because it was a big, important project, but no progress was really being made. So what we did was isolate them in a few different ways. First of all, we got together and got them to talk to each other. That was unusual. They weren't used to talking to each other at all. And we also got them to own the project, I suppose, by saying what they liked about it, what they didn't like about it, what they would like to change about it. One of them, in the middle of this chat meeting, she got up and said, one of the things we should do right now is to move our desks and filing cabinets and chairs together. We can never speak to each other because we're all in different places. And we went off and immediately did that. And the other thing that made a difference was when we started looking at their work. James and I would read whatever it was they were doing and comment on it, help them, coach them. And after, it only took a few days for them to catch on to this idea and to do it for each other. So they started to work much more as a team, much more together. So it's true that the culture around them in the whole of this big organization really didn't improve. It was just their little bit of it that was actually getting some useful stuff done. And people used to call by the project, our little project enclave, and say, how come you guys are having so much fun doing your project? Can't we join you? And of course our response was, no, this is very exclusive.
Okay, but suppose the problem is local. I mean, suppose the problem is right there. Suppose it's your boss. Suppose you work for somebody who is so angry and insecure that she is ruining the culture underneath. You may not be able to, I mean, that may be an insolvable problem. What do you think?
I think that probably is an unsolvable problem if you let that person talk to your team. I think what you've got to do is to act as almost like a shit umbrella. You don't let that person talk to the people who are trying to get the work done. You take all this crap from above, and you avoid that person or those people being able to talk to your guys, and you filter whatever it is you think that they really need to know. You translate, in other words, but you protect them, you shield them, because that person's not going to change.
Well, I love the idea of the shit umbrella. Two observations. There may be nobody to umbrella. You may be a lowest level worker, and your boss is the person above you ruining the culture. So you don't have anybody to protect, it's just you. And the second thing is, even if you do have people underneath you that you're protecting, your life is hell. You may not be able to stick with it for very long. So what is, finally, if you're looking at this horrible situation, what are you to do?
Well, I still wouldn't give up. If I would still look for opportunities, ways of me changing the culture just by my own behaviour, because I'm an optimist, as you know, Tom, and I would still hope that I could do something. I would try to identify other people who perhaps aren't saying too much, but could be encouraged to get involved in making the sorts of improvements that could be made, even if they're small ones.
I like your thinking, and I think that too. I do worry that in a suitably damaged culture, people may be frightened to join in such a thing, and you may find yourself finally alone. And in that situation, your life is hell, and what are you going to do about it?
Well, if that's really, really true, I would put my headphones on, put my head down, and go into exit mode.
I know people that should be in exit mode. Now, I understand why you don't just quit your job. You don't walk out in a huff because maybe you've got a tuition to pay and you've got a mortgage, or maybe the job market is very weak. I understand that, but you need to go into exit mode, as you say. And I know people that haven't, that have been in horrible situations for so long, and they just can't bring themselves to acknowledge it and go, wow, why do you suppose that is?
Well, I don't think they really believe that there's anywhere else in the world that's better. It's not so much that they're staying with the familiar. It's just all organisations are as bad as the current one. They've never really felt that there's anywhere in the world that will make their lives happier. So we may as well go along with this one, and they do.
They're worried it might just be the same any place they go, but that just isn't true. Think about the places that you and I've gone together on a consult, Suzanne, and seen wonderful cultures, happy, enthusiastic cultures. I just wish I could take some of these people who've given up and bring them there, take them there and say, look at this. This could be you. This could be your job. There's a great job there for you. I wish I could get them to believe it.
Oh, yes. And if they've really made up their minds to look for a new job, there is one piece of advice I'd like to share, and that is there are bad cultures out there, and if you're in one, don't just change your job and end up in another just as bad culture. What you could do is, when you're having an interview for the new job and you've found out all about the job itself, you make an interview and you start to ask some questions about the culture. Learn about the culture. Perhaps use our cultural drivers as a sort of a trigger. But what you want to do is to learn enough about the truth of that culture to decide whether or not you would be happy to be there.
The worse your culture is, the more you got to tell yourself, and this is true, there's a great job out there for you somewhere. And when the time is right, you got to go find it.